What is up, Xaliter here. Today I've got a new build I'm calling the Spear of the Kingdom. This build is all about heavy physical damage, decent defense, and strategic combat with a spear. Whether you're looking to wreck bosses or survive fights in Outward Definitive Edition, this one's for you. So, let's dive in and break down the gear, skills, and strategy behind this powerhouse. Let's kick things off with the core equipment for this build. These items are designed to give you high bonus physical damage while keeping you at least somewhat protected in fights. First up is the Master Kazai Oni Mask. This helmet provides 1 protection, 12% impact resistance, and 12% physical resistance, which is decent for a helmet. On top of that, you get 5% decay resistance and a hefty 10% bonus to physical damage. It's not just about the defense here, it's about dealing damage too. It also reduces your stamina costs by 6%, though it does increase your mana costs by 10%. For this build, you'll want to enchant it with the Assassin enchantment to get even more physical damage out of it. This item is a legacy chest upgrade item. Next, we've got the Elite Plate armor for the chest piece. This armor brings some serious protection with 3 protection, 20% impact resistance, and 26% physical resistance. You will lose 10 points of hot weather defense and see a 6% increase in stamina costs and a 6% reduction in movement speed. But honestly, that's a small price to pay for this level of tankiness. To make the armor even better, you can apply the War Master enchantment for more physical damage and protection. Finally, for the boots, we've got the Master Kazai boots. Just like the mask, they provide 1 protection, 12% impact resistance, and 12% physical resistance, along with 5% decay resistance. Plus, you'll see a nice 6% reduction in stamina costs, which is really helpful when you're in those longer fights. Of course, we're going with the Assassin enchantment here too, to keep stacking that physical damage. This item is a legacy chest upgrade item. Now let's talk about the main event, the Sar Spear. This beast of a weapon dishes out 76 base physical damage and 39 impact damage, making it one of the highest damage spears in the game. For enchantments, you've got 2 options, Whiplash or Poltergeist. If you're facing enemies with around 31% or less physical resistance, Whiplash is the way to go. It increases your base physical damage by 10%. But if you're up against enemies with higher physical resistance, say 32% or more, Poltergeist will serve you better since it adds raw damage, which ignores resistances. Personally, I prefer Poltergeist because it'll melt through high resistance enemies and still deal decent damage to those with low resistances. Also, most enemies with 31% or less physical resistance will go down easily with either enchantment. Now, let's talk about the Brigand's Backpack. This is a great addition for this build. It boosts your bonus physical damage by 15%, which is huge. Plus, it doesn't slow down your dodge rolls, so you can stay agile in combat. A downside is that you can't attach a lantern to it, which can make some dungeons a bit tricky to navigate in the dark. Now, let's move on to the skills that bring this build together. We're combining different trees to make you a powerhouse in melee combat. We're starting with the Cabal Hermit, where you'll want to pick up Infuse Wind. This skill enhances your spear attacks with wind power, increasing your attack speed and impact damage, making it a perfect fit for the slower Sar Spear. Here are the rest of the skills we want from the Cabal Hermit skill tree. From the Warrior Monk tree, grab Perfect Strike and Counter Strike. Perfect Strike is a heavy hitting attack that deals raw damage and ignores enemy blocks, and Counter Strike allows you to block and immediately counter an enemy's attack. Both are amazing for controlling melee combat. In addition, both these skills do not consume the Discipline boon, which will provide us with extra physical damage bonus. Here are the rest of the skills we want from the Warrior Monk skill tree. Finally, from the Primal Ritualist, take Nurturing Echo. This ability allows you to restore health, stamina, and mana after fights, or if you are a risk taker during fights. Just be careful when casting it. It has a long animation and leaves you vulnerable, so only use it when it's safe and or absolutely necessary. Here are the rest of the skills we want from the Primal Ritualist skill tree. Don't forget to pick up these essential tier 1 skills from various trainers to round out the build. From the Kazai Spellblade tree, grab Fitness and Steady Arm to boost your health and impact resistance when blocking. From the Mercenary tree, Fast Maintenance and Armor Training are must-haves to improve repair times and decrease negative stats from armor. Get Enraged from the Wild Hunter skill tree for the Rage boon to give your impact damage an even bigger boost. And finally, from the Speedster tree, pick up Efficiency to increase maximum stamina and Metabolic Purge to increase corruption resistance. For this build, we're only investing 3 points into mana, just enough to use key abilities like Infuse Wind and boons, without hurting your health and stamina too much. As for the faction, I went with the Heroic Kingdom of Levant for the Alchemical Experiment reward, which increases all your damage by 15%. Another reward we want is the Peacemaker Elixir, which boosts your vital stats. The extra damage is perfect for this build. Alright, now let's talk about the kind of stats you can expect from the Spear of the Kingdom build. These numbers assume that you have all your boons active and you got all the faction rewards, so keep that in mind. Offensively, you're looking at 38 base physical damage and 38 base raw damage, which is already solid. But with the build's bonuses, you'll have a 90% bonus to physical damage and 45 bonus to fire, frost, lightning, decay, and ethereal damage. And let's not forget about the 15% bonus to raw damage. Also, you'll pack 56.55 impact damage, so you're hitting hard and staggering enemies with ease. On the defensive side, you'll have 12 protection and 12 barrier, which provides a good overall defense. You'll also have 44% impact resistance, 50% physical resistance, 45% decay resistance, and 30% resistance to fire, frost, lightning, and ethereal damage. You'll also have a somewhat decent cushion for the elements with 24 cold weather defense and 14 hot weather defense. Now, for the extra stats, you're looking at 130 health, 170 stamina, and 80 mana. Your stamina costs are reduced by 9%, but your mana costs go up by 10%. You'll also get 10% corruption resistance and a slight reduction in movement speed. -3% to be exact. Later in the game, when you develop New Sirocco and unlock Kerouac's Breakthrough, things get even better. You'll gain an additional 15% bonus to physical damage and your max health will increase by 25 points. So let's talk about what it's going to take to pull this build together. Some of the gear is free, but you'll need to dish out some silver for the rest. First up, the Master Kazite Oni Mask and the Master Kazite Boots won't cost you anything since you can get them from the Legacy chests. The Sar Spear is also free, but you'll need to gather Sar Stones and craft it after defeating the Plague Doctor. Now, when it comes to armor, the Elite Plate armor will set you back 700 silver, but since its availability in the shop is RNG, you may want to pick up another piece of armor until it can be obtained. You can pick up a temporary plate armor for 350 silver. For the skills, here's the breakdown. The Cabal Hermit tree costs 1,300 silver, the Warrior Monk skill tree costs 1,850 silver, and the Primal Ritualist tree will run you 2,450 silver. Don't forget the tier 1 skills like Fitness and Steady Arm, which will add another 450 silver to the total. So, when you add it all up, you're looking at 6,750 silver to complete the build, or 7,100 silver if you grab that temporary plate armor. Now let's go over some alternative equipment options in case you can't get your hands on the core gear right away or if you simply want different equipment. First up is a regular Kazite Oni Mask. You'll lose some protection and physical damage compared to the master version, but it's still a solid option if you can't access legacy chests. Use the Assassin enchantment to keep boosting your damage. If you're looking for more protection, the Elite Plate Helm is a good choice. It boosts your physical resistance and protection, but lowers your decay resistance and movement speed. If you use the War Master enchantment, you can still get a nice physical damage boost. The Plate Helm is another decent option for early game use, providing decent protection and physical resistance, though you'll lose some decay resistance and have increased stamina costs. You can use it until you get your hands on the Elite Plate Helm. Again, the War Master enchantment will help keep your damage up. The Virgin Helmet is another lower tier option. You'll lose a lot of stats including physical and impact resistance, but it's still usable. You can enchant it with either War Master for more protection or Assassin for more physical damage. If you can't get the Elite Plate armor, the Master Kazite armor is a great alternative. It offers less impact resistance and physical resistance, but gives you better movement speed and decay resistance. With the Assassin enchantment, you'll still deal solid damage. The regular plate armor is a solid placeholder until you can get the elite version. You'll get decent protection and impact resistance, but it's not as strong as the elite set. Use the War Master enchantment to keep your damage high. Finally, the Virgin Armor trades off some protection and impact resistance for better hot weather defense and movement speed. It's a bit lighter on defense, but you can still use it with either War Master or Assassin enchantment. If you can't get the Master Kazite boots, Elite Plate boots are a solid option. You'll lose some movement speed and have increased stamina costs, but you get more physical resistance and protection. Enchant them with War Master for a damage boost. The regular plate boots are another option, providing solid protection and impact and physical resistance, though you'll lose out on movement speed and have increased stamina costs. Use them early on until you can get the elite plate boots. You can also enchant them with War Master for more damage. Here's a quick rundown of how to put the build together step by step. Get silver by farming across RI. Buy tier 1 skills and collect legacy chest items. Pick up temporary plate armor if needed. Unlock Warrior Monk, then Cabal Hermit, and finally Primal Ritualist. Get mana. Keep checking Harmattan for elite plate armor. Farm Star Stones for the spear. Defeat the Plague Doctor to craft the Star Spear. Gather enchantment materials and enchant your gear. Complete the Heroic Kingdom faction quests and parallel quests. Finish Rust and Vengeance, and finally build New Sirocco. Alright, now that your build is ready, let's go over how to use it in combat effectively. First things first, if you're about to face off against a boss, unique enemy, or anything that looks tough, drink some potions and use Infuse Wind or another imbue if you prefer. This will give you that extra edge right from the start. Next, you'll want to cast your boons. Discipline is a must-have for every fight because it gives you that crucial physical damage boost. Rage is great too for increasing your impact damage. You might want to keep Discipline and Rage potions on hand since their skill cooldowns are long, 500 seconds, but the skill itself only lasts for about 240 seconds. So, having potions is a nice backup. Once that's sorted, it's time to place your totems. Drop them down near each other and lure enemies into the area. This sets you up for controlling the battlefield and boosting your damage and defenses. Now, get into melee combat. The spear has great reach, so keep your distance when possible and hit the totems during the fight to trigger their effects. Use Perfect Strike to deal massive damage and Counter Strike to block an incoming attack and retaliate with heavy damage. You can also throw in Mana Push and Embrace depending on the situation. Both are super useful for decreasing the enemy's stability. If the fight is getting tough, keep an eye on your health, stamina, and mana. When things are under control or at the end of the fight, cast Nurturing Echo. Just be careful, it has a long cast time, so make sure you're not in danger when using it. The key is to stay mobile, use the range of your spear to your advantage, and balance between offensive strikes and defensive counters. And there you have it. That's the Spear of the Kingdom build. With a solid mix of offense, defense, and strategy, this build will help you crush your enemies and survive even the toughest fights in Outward. I hope you found this video helpful. If you are looking for ways to get certain equipment, click on the info card for in-depth videos on different equipment. Otherwise, I'll see you later.